Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're going to take a look at the guitar work from Real Estate's fifth studio album, The Main Thing. I'm really excited for this video because Real Estate has always been a very guitar-forward band, and personally one of my favorites. I think I started listening to them around the time when Days came out, and I remember just being instantly hooked after listening to songs like It's Real and Easy. And I was actually listening to that album so much, I remember my friends who like similar music as me asking, like, David, why do you like this band so much? Like, why do you keep listening to this album? And I think the reason I enjoyed it as much as I did was just because of their guitar work. It's always been a highlight of Real Estate albums, in my opinion, and it's certainly not the most technical or challenging guitar work by any means, but it's extremely well written and catchy, which is why I've always really enjoyed it. However, after their release of Atlas, the band parted ways with their lead guitarist, Matt Mondanelli, and they brought on Julian Lynch, who was actually a longtime friend of the band. So Julian served as lead guitarist for both In Mind as well as The Main Thing, and with Julian entering the band, their sound changed quite a bit. Now, I don't think it has all to do with Julian, but In Mind certainly sounded quite a bit different compared to Real Estate's previous records. And with the latest album, The Main Thing, that sound has altered slightly yet again. In my opinion, there are still kind of some throwbacks to the classic Real Estate sound, but overall the album's actually much more varied in sound, and I really enjoyed it. But I'm not really here to focus on the sound of the record. I kind of want to just dive into some of the guitar work on the album and play some pieces from the album that I personally really enjoyed. Now, the first thing I noticed about the guitar work on The Main Thing was all of the guitar solos. Now, previously, there were some small guitar solos here and there in Real Estate songs, but with The Main Thing, it kind of seemed to be a focal point of the album almost, and I feel like the band is definitely self-aware of this. Check out this Instagram post from the band's page about Julian Lynch shredding. And here's another one. And, I don't really know if this is my definition of shredding, maybe, but there certainly are a lot more guitar solos in this album than there were previously. Alright, so let's start off by taking a look at the intro to probably the first song most of you heard off this album, which is Paper Cup. Now, the first thing I noticed when listening to that riff was that lead guitar tone. I'm not going to take credit for this comparison. I think I saw it in the YouTube comment section for the Paper Cup music video, but people were saying that lead tone sounded like Santana, which, I never thought I'd live in a world where we're comparing Santana to Real Estate, but it kind of makes sense to me. It has that real tight, slightly distorted guitar tone, and I get where they're coming from, and it sounds really great in my opinion. And, as far as the actual content of the riff, it has that little fast pull-off, that embellishment, that sounds amazing to me. This. Now, imagine playing that without the pull-off. It just doesn't have the same feel to it. Not the same impact. That pull-off. Man, I don't know. I love that thing. That sounds amazing. All right, next up, now we're going to look at the solo from Paper Cup. Now, it took me longer than I'd like to admit to realize that was actually a guitar solo and not a synth solo the first time I heard that. The guitar tone is super interesting, and, obviously I wasn't able to come anywhere near the studio version. If you haven't heard the studio version, please go check it out and listen to that before listening to the rest of this, but, I was just using my micro plug to try to emulate that sound, and didn't even come close in my opinion, but yeah, super, super interesting tone. And, outside of the tone, again, there's a lot of just really short, catchy licks throughout the solo that, when composed together, really make it an interesting solo. So here's probably my favorite part. And that's like, what, maybe 10 notes or so, but In my opinion, less notes in a guitar solo can be more, and this is a great example of that. Now, let's move on to my single favorite guitar piece in the whole album, which is the solo from the song You. Now, first off, guys, this song is not getting enough love. It's amazing. It really reminds me of a throwback to Days, but with this really, really interesting guitar solo thrown in. So let's take a look at that solo really quick. Now, obviously, that solo is filled with delay, which I love. I'm a huge fan of delay, but it's the way the solo is built around the delay which makes it so great in my opinion. You can't just go take delay and go throw it on any old guitar solo and expect it to sound good. You have to build the solo with the delay in mind. So that is definitely happening in this solo, and there's a certain part in here that I really enjoy. It really, there's like this little like ping pong kind of effect. I don't know, it really works very well with the delay. And, you know, around that time, the bass also kicks in, which is something I like about the solo. I know it's not related to the guitar, but you notice the bass is not in there for probably the first couple bars of that solo, and then it eventually kicks in right around that part I just played, and it really gives that part more emphasis and makes it sound really, really great. So overall, probably my favorite guitar piece of this album. Now, finally, I want to take a look at the guitar solo from the title track on the album, The Main Thing. Now you'll notice with this guitar solo we have yet another interesting tone or interesting use of effects. So far we've had a guitar solo that sounded like a synth, we've had a guitar solo with heavy delay, and now we have a guitar solo with heavy wah. Now I don't have a wah pedal, so I couldn't get it to sound quite like the album, but you kind of get the point. And this is what I was talking about in the beginning of the video, is Real Estate really explores a lot of different sounds in this album. You know, they're not stuck to that one single clean jangle sound like Days and Atlas. No shade to those albums, I love those albums, but they're really exploring a lot more throughout this album. Now, as far as the guitar solo itself, it has that really, really fast run in the beginning, which is not normal for a Real Estate song whatsoever, so that's pretty interesting. It's a different twist thrown in there. And, you know, I was actually reading the Pitchfork review for this album, and they called this solo a jazz fusion-inspired guitar solo. I'm not really sure where Pitchfork came up with that one, but I don't necessarily agree. But it is a really interesting guitar solo nonetheless. Alright guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed looking through some of these guitar pieces with me. I thought it was really interesting. I think it's a great album overall, and you know, I enjoyed trying to learn all these solos by ear, and I also built all these backing tracks, which is why they probably don't sound perfect, but you know, I really enjoyed the process of doing that. And lastly, if you enjoy this type of video, please let me know. This is very different than what I normally do. Normally I just do normal guitar covers, but you know, I'm trying to mix things up a little bit and provide some different content. So if this is something you enjoy, hey, please just let me know down in the comments. Thanks guys, see ya.